And I am done. So I just finished up reading a collection of 5 short stories called The Tales of Bauchelain and Korbal Broach. I'm going to give a review for all of these books at once. And overall, I give these books a 4 out of 5 stars. I really, really enjoyed them, and I want to talk to you about why I enjoyed them and a little background about what these books are. So these books are set in the Malazan universe. The Malazan universe is a large series of books written by 2 different authors. You have Steven Erikson, who's written Malazan Book of the Fallen, among some other little books. And then you have Ian C. Esselmont, who's written a number of other stories as well. Two notable series set within this universe. But Malazan Book of the Fallen is the big one. That's the one that everyone talks about when they talk about Malazan. Well, in the 3rd book in that series, Memories of Ice, there's these 2 characters, Bauchelain and Korbal Broach, who are these 2 hilarious necromancers that are way overpowered. They don't care at all about any concerning themselves with other characters because they know they're so overpowered. And they've got this manservant named Emancipor Reese. And he is just a regular dude that is constantly terrified of all the problems they're getting themselves into, but he's going along with them. They are not a major feature in these books. They're only in 1 book, and they probably are only in like 50 pages in this book. But they are fan favorites because of how funny they are. Well, Steven Erikson decided to write a series of short stories that center around these characters. Each of these books are novellas. They're like 100 to 150 pages long. And they're set into 2 different collections. I think it's called like the first collected tales and the second collected tales. I read them both at once. So I think there's 6 total books, but the 6th book is just written in longhand, and you can only read it on Steven Erikson's Facebook page. And I can't read cursive for long periods of time without my eyes getting weary. So I'm not going to read that one, and I'm not reviewing it now. Until that one gets published, if it does. So this series starts out, and I really didn't know what to expect. I knew these characters were funny, but I didn't know what these books would be about. And the first book was really underwhelming. It's called Blood Follows, and I gave it a 2 out of 5. And it just felt like it was a setup for future books to come, and ultimately that's what it was. The ending was rushed. I didn't get a ton of enjoyment out of it, but what it was a comedy horror book. And that feels like a weird combo. It's almost like Steven Erikson took a bet that said, I can write good books that combine these 2 genres. Because I've never heard of that combination before. I don't know if anybody's ever done it before. And the first book definitely was underwhelming, but it ended on a place where it felt like we were actually going to get into the meat of the story, so I kept going. Well, the next one, these are, I read them chronologically, not in order of publication. And the next one chronologically is called The Lees of Laughter's End. And oh my goodness, this is I don't know, up until that point, it was the greatest short story I've ever read. It is funnier than any Pratchett book. And I'm a big Pratchett fan if you've watched my channel. I love Terry Pratchett. But this book put him to shame. It was absolutely hilarious, laugh out loud funny. My wife, many times in the middle of the night when I'm reading this book, just looked over at me and glared at me like, what are you laughing at like a maniac? And man, it's unbelievable how funny this book was. It is a dark horror book. Not scary horror, but people are dying left and right. Bloody, gruesome deaths. These 2 necromancers are leaving a trail of bodies in their wake. This book is perfect for the length it is, and I don't like short stories. I've never liked short stories. The highest I think I've ever rated a short story is 4 out of 5 stars, and that was one of the Murderbot books. Now, I might have given it 4.5 stars, but I think it was 4 stars. And in this book, The Lees of Laughter's End is about these 2 necromancers. They get on a boat as a getaway boat with this group of sailors, and a demon gets set loose on board of this ship, and people start getting picked off left and right. And what makes these books so funny is the dialogue between these characters. Not so much the situations. The situations set up the dialogue. But this is just... It's hard to explain. And I had to set the book down a few times and just ponder, how can somebody be such a genius as Steven Erikson to write this amazingly funny? Steven Erikson is my favorite author, and these books cement that. He's my favorite author because he writes the best epic fantasy books that have existed in my mind, but they're also like philosophically deep. And for this author also to have it in his arsenal to be the funniest author I've ever read, it's just amazing what this man is capable of. The next book in the series is The Healthy Dead. And this book is a 5 out of 5 again, maybe funnier than the previous one. And the premise of this book is that these necromancers go into a town, and the town is run by this dictator who demands that everybody be obsessively healthy. So much so that it's like unhealthy what he's making them do. And if you do not prescribe to this healthy lifestyle, he kills you. And so these people are terrified. Everybody is living on a knife's edge, and the proclamations that come out from this guy are getting like more bonkers and more bonkers. And following not just the main characters of Bauchelain and Korbal, Broach and Emancipor Reese, but to watch the dialogue that this guy has with his chronicler. He's got that. I don't know that that's his name officially in this book, but he has this guy follow him around and write down everything that he says, because he wants to be written down in history, but he's constantly asking this guy to embellish and to make it better than it is. He's interrupting him all the time. Their dialogue is just like chef's kiss, perfect. And it really made me almost regret going back and reading more Pratchett books, because I know what they really can be, what truly amazing humor is. The next book in the series was The Worms of Blearmouth, and again, 5 out of 5 stars. Just a tremendously wonderful book that tells a different story about them kind of taking over a different town, and all the while they're leaving. Throughout these books, they are to be read in, I liked them in chronological order, because it does tell a story of them pissing off a bunch of people. And every time they leave, more people keep following them. And by this book, you have a trail of people that are trying to catch up to these dudes that want to get vengeance on them, but nobody really knows how powerful they are. And so they're constantly underestimating their power. And it's wonderful to this dynamic of how unassuming these guys are, because they know how powerful they are and nobody else does. And the fact that they have no stress about the worst of situations because they know that they can get out of them. The fourth book, is that fourth? Maybe 5. The fifth book is Crackpot Trail. I hated this book. I didn't finish it, got about halfway through. It's a 1 out of 5 stars. I bet a lot of people think this is the best one in the series, though. Because it does something. The writing is amazing. The plot just didn't connect with me, because Bauchelain and Korbal Broach aren't even in this book. Maybe they are at the end. I didn't get to that point. But it centers around the guys that are chasing them, and it's almost like a Donner Party story. They run out of food. They're trying to chase after these guys. It's the main cast that you followed before of everybody they've pissed off before, but they meet up with this group of poets and musicians that are on their way to this giant festival to judge how good they are. Well, they've run out of food, and so these really strong guys start eating them, and they make them perform every night and tell these stories to try to save themselves. And so really it's a bunch of stories within stories, and like half the book is the poets telling stories. I don't like that dynamic in fantasy books. It's one of the worst. I know some people that love it, but I hate the story within a story, and that's really all this premise is. It's the most philosophical of the books. You can tell that it's playing on like themes of modern society and trying to tell like a deeper story here. I just couldn't appreciate it. The last book in this series that I read, The Fiends of Nightmaria. I guess there's 6 that I read. There's probably 7 total. Yeah, there's 7 total. And The Fiends of Nightmaria is kind of a similar tale where they go into a town, but they want to settle. So they kill the ruler, put his head on a spike. They finally caught everybody that's chasing after them, throw them in the dungeons, or torturing them, but they want to set themselves up as rulers. And so Bauchelain turns himself into the dictator. Korbal Broach is like the main church leader for the community, and the whole book is about the people escaping the prison and trying to escape. Giant demons, like these sex-craved demons, which is just bonkers, but really funny, are set free and just picking off everybody one by one. And then a new group that sees a transition in power, that thinks they can get power. The dialogue is just amazing between all these characters, and I feel like I'm getting repetitive, but I can't get over how good these books are and how little people have reviewed them. I'm looking at some of the reviews, and mostly they're reviewed by like 50 to 100 people. And I suspect that a lot of Malazan fans just overlook these books. A lot of Malazan fans really haven't read past Book of the Fallen, and they're not doing themselves any favors, because the Estamont books are wonderful. These books are wonderful. Really, anything these guys put out are awesome stuff. So if you're a Malazan fan, go read these books. If you're not a Malazan fan, you don't need to have read any Malazan to enjoy these books. If anything about reading a hysterical horror book with philosophical outlooks the entire time is at all appealing to you, pick these things up. Got to read past the first one, though. First one's not great, but read the first two. And I almost assure you that you're going to find a new love in these books. So that's my reviews. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.